In our way, and our golden age has just begun.
This is Human Events with Jack Posobiec.
Now it's time for everyone to understand what America First truly means.
Welcome to the Second American Revolution.
Jack Posobiec back live, Human Events, Daily, Real America's Voice. Did you know that in the last 6 weeks, 86 million AT&T users had their name, address, and social security numbers leaked? Or that the CCP is harvesting massive volumes of Americans' personal data to train DeepSeek and other AI systems? When you're online doing the work like I am, you need digital camouflage, and that is why I've partnered with our newest show sponsor, Patriot Protect. Patriot Protect removes your personal data from the internet. Whether it's Google, Amazon, or Apple, your personal data will be wiped so that scammers and cyber criminals and swatters, like the ones who came after the Poso family, will not and cannot find your data, and you can take back your security and privacy. Once Patriot Protect scans and scrubs your personal information, they'll continuously monitor your info to make sure every new instance of a possible data breach is eliminated immediately. I'm talking 24/7 protection for the cost of keeping the porch lights on. The only thing worse than getting hacked is knowing you could have stopped it and didn't take action when you could have. So go to patriot-protect.com/POSO and use promo code POSO for 15% off a yearly subscription. That's patriot-protect.com/POSO and use promo code POSO for 15% off a yearly subscription. Patriot-protect.com/POSO. Folks, we've got General Flynn on right now, and I don't want to beat around the bush. General Flynn, what should people be looking for, and how important are these Anchorage Accords?
Yeah, thanks, Jack, for having me. Okay, so, and I've been putting down a whole bunch of notes here, which I'm going to come out with a little bit later today about what I believe all of us, and I'm one of the biggest fans of President Trump and I want him to be monumentally successful. But I want everybody to understand that we need to really meter our expectations of what is possible for these historic talks. And I actually think that these, as you're calling it, the Anchorage Accords, which is a great name for this, kind of like the Budapest Agreement back in Hungary after the collapse of the Cold War. This particular meeting is going to be a defining moment, not just in U.S. relations with Russia and the Russian Federation, but I actually think that this meeting really will define whether or not, what is the survival for the world going forward. And as Trump said to Zelensky at some point in time, a while back, where he said, you don't hold all the cards. Well, we don't hold all the cards in this. When you're talking about what cards are held, the Russia holds a lot of cards here. They hold terrain. They hold places like Crimea, the Donbasses. I mean, there's going to be a lot of talk about all that. This is also a losing war. If anybody is everybody tells you that Ukraine can win this thing. I mean, the Ukrainians right now are having to recruit 60-year-olds to join their military, right? So this is a losing war, and the spoils usually go to the winner. So Trump is going into a meeting where, as he's going to discuss with Putin, he doesn't hold cards where he's in a winning position. What Trump is in, is he's in a winning position with a strong economy and strong leadership. And I do believe that Putin desires actually desperately, in some cases, I believe, a relationship with the United States of America. The incremental approach of NATO on the Russian Federation frontier since the collapse of the Soviet Union and the end of the Cold War, we frankly have been lying to Russia for the better part of 25 years, or actually longer than that now, almost 35 years. It's where we said, well, there will be no, Baker was the one that said it, and we agreed to it in Budapest, where we would not spread NATO into the frontiers of the Russian Federation, and in fact we did. You're showing a very important figure right now, Ronald Reagan. And one of the things that I would strongly, strongly urge President Trump to do, if he hasn't done it or hasn't gotten the advice from his team, is make sure that your team tells you what are the Russians' interests. What is it that, I'm assuming that Witkoff went over there and he's talked to him and all these old smart people, all these analysts. But if Reagan was hugely successriel, and he directed his team, and they went up to Reykjavik, actually. He directed his team to make sure that Reagan, understood what was at stake for Russia, right? What was their interest? What is in their interest? So he understood that. The other thing that Reagan did, and I learned this from a person who was on that team just in the last 24 hours. So a person who actually was on the team that went to Reykjavik with Reagan and Gorbachev, as you're showing it there. One of the things that Reagan told his team was, do not, basically get out in front of my skis. Do not push any buttons unless I say so. Otherwise, and do not leak, right? Otherwise, you will be immediately dismissed, and sent home, kind of thing. This is it's that important of a meeting. I want President Trump to be hugely successful, but this is not a time to be beating our chest or patting ourselves on the back. And if it were me advising President Trump, and I know that he listens to your show, Jack, that I would, because Putin understands English perfectly. He doesn't like to do it in forums sometimes because it's a matter of, it's a sort of a point of pride, if you will. It's the way he operates. What I would do, Jack, is I would throw everybody out of the room and I would just leave myself. I would recommend to Trump leave himself with Putin and have a sort of a man-to-man conversation about what is it that we want to achieve? What are we willing to achieve? Now, if I have a minute, Jack, to talk about Zelensky, because, we're talking about Ukraine and, of course, the president of I don't know if I have a minute to go through a couple of things on Zelensky. These are important.
Please go right ahead, General.
Okay, so people are going to say, and the Europeans are going to go, why isn't Zelensky there? Zelensky, number one, he declared martial law, and they ought to really have another presidential election. And so Zelensky, in a way, has put himself in a position where, you don't know what to believe when it comes to Zelensky. I can tell you, because in another part of my life, we have filed in court almost a $42 billion whistleblower case against that man right there, against Ukraine, for just severe levels of corruption and money laundering that have gone through Ukraine. So that's just one among many. But Zelensky, he jeopardized world peace by having that drone attack. People have to remember the drone attack that attacked one of the legs of Russia's nuclear triad, which was really dangerous. And we still don't know whether or not the U.S. was informed about it, but he did that. That was not a smart move on his part. This is also the man that on one day will agree to give territory for peace, and then the next day, he doesn't want to have any trade agreements. I mean, he flip-flops and has flip-flopped a lot. And I'm just reading off some things here that I wrote down. This is a man, Zelensky now, whose key military units in his own government have been using Nazi-like symbols, right, without any kind of apology. I mean, so, when we talk about...
General Flynn, in fact, that same unit, the Azov Battalion, I'm seeing reports now that they've been forward deployed to these collapsing front lines. They're sending the Azovs back in because that's how bad some of the Russian breakouts and salients are getting in those eastern Donbas regions.
Right. The other thing, and this is a very important one, this goes back to Zelensky talking to Vice President J.D. Vance, who basically, he made demands of the United States of America without ever giving us, even a nod of thanks for what the American people have been giving to Ukraine. So there's a litany of things, Jack. I think that Trump, again, I'm going to repeat myself here for the sake of your audience and and maybe listen, and for Trump too. I do think that the American people, we need to reduce our expectations of what will come out of this. Like, is Trump going to push Russia out of the Ukraine? Not a bit. Might there be some discussion about running elections again? They already did elections in a couple of the eastern Donbasses, and the people there have voted, overwhelmingly to support Russia. You know that there's a recent poll in Russia that was done, very good poll that was done. It shows 80% of the Russian people want a stronger relationship with the United States of America. All these people that name call Putin, all these things, I don't know. I'm just, what I know is these are the two great powers, nuclear powers on the planet. And we cannot have the discussions that we've been having and the chest beating by the military-industrial complex neocons.
And this is what
perpetual war.
As
a way
you
of
say,
life.
President Trump is pulling him in. He's pulling him in for this. He's pulling him in for this one-on-one, man-to-man discussion, totally disintermediating, as you say, the transatlantic access, the Atlanticists, the globalists, the G7, all the EU, all the rest of them. And he's saying, I want to sit man-to-man and look him in the eye. General Flynn, I know you got to run. Where can people go to follow you and to get this dispatch when you drop it later?
Yeah, they can follow me at generalflynn.com, generalflynn.com. One last thing, Jack, that I got to say, because I want people to understand this. The people in Europe think, Putin's going to attack NATO and he's going to take, like the days of the Soviet Union. Jack, you know that he doesn't have the rear end to do that. I mean, we're talking about a country with about 140 million people.
All right, folks, we'll be right back. Human Events Daily, Real America's Voice.